Hi.
We're Atheist Edge.
And you're watching Nervardia.
Hi everyone and welcome to my channel, and also a massive thank you to Atheist Edge for this awesome intro. Okay, I've decided not to try and milk this for what it's worth because I don't want to turn this channel into a drama one. So what I'm going to do is hopefully only do 2 videos relating to this interview with John, or maybe 3 if the second one is going to be too long. After these videos, unless there is an update I feel you need to know, I will not mention this again. Any videos I find that respond to the fallout, I will definitely link to a playlist which is here. The first video, or this one, is me reflecting on the interview. So what I did well, what I did badly, and how I could have done some things better. The second and possibly third videos are coalescing everything regarding the fallout after the interview up to the point of filming in one handy place because, wow, really? This should drop sometime next week. If you've not seen the interview I'm talking about and literally have no idea what is going on and asking yourself, why the hell am I sitting here listening to Nervardia talk about this interview? Please watch Ocean's video and my interview with John Richards linked in the description below. They're long, but worth the watch. Due to technical difficulties, the interview starts just before 12 minutes. The timestamp is in the pinned comment. He does, however, become very verbally abusive, so please look after yourself if that is a trigger for you. With the interview, I will start with what I did well. I did my homework. I watched the streams again with Lance and David, as well as John and Shannon. I watched Ocean's video at least 4 times. I checked their website. I asked people what questions they wanted answered. I had a document open with these questions on it, so I could refer to it easily. I set up OBS and got kind of familiar with it beforehand. I came in prepared for the interview. That was really reassuring. I strongly suggest that if you are going to get someone on, or if you are appearing on someone's channel for a stream, you should watch at least one of their videos, talk to them a little bit on social media, and kind of get a feel for who they are. I can almost guarantee you that John did not do that for me. I even linked Ocean's video to him, and he said on stream that he watched some of it. He came into my interview completely unprepared, and it showed. One important thing I noticed with Shannon's interview was that John refused to answer some questions, so I knew that I was going to enter into a conversation with someone who was going to be difficult. He was also extremely arrogant and showed utmost contempt for Shannon, which I knew I could use to my advantage, because people like that don't like being challenged. However, to be honest, I did not expect that level of reaction. Another thing I did well was prepare mentally. I was really nervous as it was the first time I had ever been the interviewer. I knew it was going to be a hostile environment coming into it, and I was very anxious in the days leading up to it. I was speaking a lot with Ocean and Shannon, who both gave me invaluable tips and ideas. Without them, I don't think the interview could have gone as well. But even still, I was terrified even before going on, especially since I hadn't used my opening OBS setups until the night before. By the way, OBS is a program that allows you to have a customized streaming interface. It is very complicated and it took hours to set up. I have been told by a few experienced streamers to run the opening scene in OBS for a minute or so. This gives people who want to watch the stream enough time to get to the channel after they get notified by YouTube. That is why streams have that opening scene. I knew it was late for John as he said it was past his bedtime in the UK. It was 10 PM for him and 8 AM for me. When we started the stream, I ran the opening scene in OBS and he started mockingly snoring. Luckily, I had Critical Cripple in the green room with us, so he was a witness for it. Unfortunately, at that time, John's audio wasn't working. As I said, I had never used OBS before. If it had been working, my entire audience would have heard his snoring because I hadn't turned off his mic, as my OBS setup was only finalized the night before and there was still bugs in it. When I found out his snoring wasn't picked up, I was absolutely spewing. Another thing I did well was develop a plan of attack. I made him comfortable by giving him easy questions from the beginning. From the very start, he was extremely arrogant. I noticed he was being very impatient while I was figuring out the issues with the audio, which is the height of irony considering his demonstrable, complete inability to do anything technical. Once the audio issues were fixed and I repeated the softball questions, I then moved on to harder ones. Initially, I decided to be nice to him. You might have noticed that I gave him 3 opportunities to change his response to my question about whether Lance was still financing the convention. At first, he said he couldn't tell us his sponsors due to privacy reasons. I warned him that people would consider that answer to confirm that Lance was still bankrolling the convention. He repeated his original answer twice more. I decided not to offer him an opportunity to change his answers again because, let's be honest, it would have been a very boring interview if I'd done that. To be honest, I think that was a good move because my audience would have seen that I was trying to be more than fair, even to the point of explaining how to contact someone online, albeit with a bit of sass. For an organiser of an event as prestigious as this one, I was genuinely confused as to how he could not find Atheist Edge's email. A question I now have is, if you can't find Jim Hall's contact details, which anyone can find in less than a minute, how the hell did you get Richard Dawkins and Stephen Fry's? Or did you just lie to us about trying to contact Jim? One of the pieces of advice I was given was to never lose control under any circumstances whatsoever. And I think I did all right. I will address some mistakes later. The feedback for this was overwhelming. Everyone was impressed with my almost superhuman patience with a person who was acting like a petulant child. Not my words, by the way. I am honestly still trying to figure out what I want to call him. Although I seemed calm during the stream, in fact, I was internally screaming. I'm going to be honest here. In the moment, the adrenaline was rushing, so it was actually pretty easy to keep calm, but boy did I not do it alone. To everyone who was in the chat, you really grounded me. I kept seeing people saying things like, mute the dickhead, and how is she doing this, and Mero, I'm so proud of you, etc. You really helped, and from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I also have to do a special shout out to Shannon Q. Your comments on the side chat were so important. Seeing your name pop up with words of encouragement, rage and exasperation really helped. Also, I love the comment saying, I'm yelling at Paul. Paul, I apologize. Also, other names in the side chat popped up, such as good friends like Not Your Witness, Ocean Keltoy, Atheist Pastor, Mama Atheist, Jen's Little Corner, Atheist Edge, David Worley, and many more. I needed you there so I could make you proud. A few other names during the stream popped up, such as Matt Dillahunty. I saw when he was in the side chat, and when I did, I knew I had better not fuck this up. You are all invaluable for the support and suggesting questions, and for that, I thank you. The Word document I was using with the questions was covering OBS, so I couldn't see his face, and I honestly think that played a part in keeping me calm. Being unable to see his body language helped a lot. For example, I didn't even know he cupped his hands and yelled into the microphone until I watched it back. If I'd seen that, I probably would have lost it a little bit. So that was something I learnt. If you are doing an interview with someone who is going to be abrasive, I do suggest obscuring their face somehow. Some of the things I could have done better was to move the conversation along. We got stuck several times on the same topic because he refused to answer my questions. Because of this, I was unable to ask other ones. I really wanted to ask why he thought it was okay to address Rachel Oates using a stuffed toy. How is it he hadn't heard of Rachel Oates before her video addressing her issues with the conference? Considering she's one of the biggest names in YouTube atheism, as well as being British, I am honestly surprised that he didn't know of her. Why has David Silverman, who has done nothing for the past year for atheism other than lawsuits, have been nominated for Atheist of the Year? Why weren't people who were directly connected to the parent company of the conference considered to be ineligible for receiving an award? By the way, David Silverman was employed by the parent company for Anti-Theist International for a few months before being forced to resign. These and many other questions weren't asked because we were too busy repeating ourselves, and for that, I apologise. I definitely should have spent more time watching the chat. That's a common thing and that's okay, but I still feel I let you down. I also hadn't put it on live chat, which meant that I missed a good chunk of what people were writing. YouTube prioritises certain messages and doesn't show other ones if set on top chat. You can change the settings in the chat window to show all messages, but you need to do it every single time you watch a video. I really wish YouTube would let us put live chat as default. Technical issues was another big thing in the interview, so next time I'm going to do this, I'm going to get someone to produce it for me. Also, after all the yelling and arguing, the biggest controversy of my interview flew right under the radar, and I can't believe more people aren't talking about it. It's this bit here. How could I? Another thing I did wrong was I should have had several versions of the same question. For example, when I was asking about David Silverman and his anti-feminist leanings, I kept repeating myself rather than rephrasing the question. This is a rookie mistake. Thank you, Mama Atheist, for the suggestion in the side chat. I unfortunately didn't see it until after I rewatched the interview. Another thing I did wrong is that I did ask some unfair questions. For example, when I was asking about the policy writing timeline, I said it should have been the first thing that was written. Instead, I should have said it should have been finalised before the speakers were invited and the website developed. I also outright said that his priorities were wrong, which, while on the surface might have been a valid point, It was also manipulative and it implied that he didn't care about people. It was a dirty thing to say. Another unfair thing I did was I twisted his words when I asked if he was including women as children. That wasn't fair and he rightfully pointed it out, as he was talking to me as if I was a child. There are other unfair questions in the interview as well. I will put these down to rookie mistakes, and John, I apologise for that unprofessional standard. Another thing was I was extremely stressed and kept saying the wrong words. That was extremely unprofessional. To my audience, I apologise for that. I know you're going to probably be saying, Mero, he had just been screaming at you for about 45 minutes. You're allowed to be a little bit flustered. But the fact of the matter is I allowed him to get under my skin. Rule number 1 in interviews is that you don't let them get you emotionally involved, which I did. The point at which he made it more personal for me was when he told me, I'm glad you're not perfect. And that is just basic schoolyard bullying. After that, the majority of mistakes that I addressed in this video occurred. I really regret misnaming Dawkins' book. I wanted to talk about the God delusion, but instead I renamed it God's Not Dead. If you don't know what that is, it is a horrendous piece of Christian propaganda disguised as a movie starring Kevin Sorbo. I am so sorry. However, he knew what I was talking about, and so did the chat, so it wasn't as bad as what it could have been. I also kept saying award rather than nomination, which was also an example of me misspeaking. Again, thank you so much for your superior lateral thinking skills and recognizing my mistake, and I apologize. I also felt that I was becoming a bit of an asshole by the end of the interview. I was trying to be as nice as possible, but it was becoming very difficult. I allowed myself to get angry, and you can hear it in my tone and the way I asked the questions. For example, if I had been more composed, I would not have baited him as much. The way I asked about DaveCon was an example of this. I especially regret my comment, but people with credible sexual assault allegations are allowed, before I go on to read the super chats without letting him respond. I apologize to everyone for that. It was not cool. Another thing I regret saying is that I don't think you are the most organized person. Even though you might say he's clearly not, it was a bit of a low blow and it did come out of nowhere. And again, I apologize for my behavior. I'm sure an experienced journalist watching this video would be able to tear apart my interview and point to even more mistakes I did. But for me, these are the biggest ones I made, and hopefully in the future I won't make them again. A few of my favourite parts of the interview was when he started to yell, "Complain, complain, complain, complain," over the top of me as I was asking a question. This also seems to be a favourite part of the interview for most people and has been memed several times. Look, you can even buy it on a t-shirt. Link in the description below. Another highlight was his answer to the question about Lance being financially involved was not at liberty to say, because, of course, we've found evidence to suggest that he is, which I will explain in later videos. His comment on him allowing paedophiles into the convention took me by surprise because we weren't talking about paedophilia. That was a good one, especially when Notja mentioned to me it sounded like he was suggesting that Lance was a paedophile. Notja wasn't the only one to say that. David Worley in the chat mentioned the same thing. Also, I really loved the way he said,
"That's very rude of you."
Doesn't make me feel like he thinks I'm a 5-year-old girl at all. I caught him out on 2 lies, and I will let Ocean explain this one.
There's a couple of things that were really interesting that happened about Nervardia's interview with John Richards that I want to point out. Nervardia, needled him a little bit, but his reactions got him into a situation which he's been caught in 2 lies. Now, the first lie is that he's never received any notification of a nomination for David Worley. That's bull. David Worley ran a campaign of getting nominated, and there's an email from John Richards to David Worley saying that he's not willing to accept his nomination unless he does an interview with him. So there's contradictory statements coming from John Richards, from Mero's interview and from his emails to David Worley. The second lie that he had was that the Lance Gregor truck interview and his safety policy, his safeguarding policy, are not related. Also bull, because that was the whole. His plea to Rachel includes sarcastic comments about him not thinking that a policy is needed, talking about going into bars and them not having safety policies and how absolutely dangerous this is, and that there's potentially a lot of money to be made by lawyers here. Okay, that's a lie. He says in Mero's interview that this was always in existence, that it just wasn't published. But when he's being interviewed by Shannon, it had just been completed. There was an incomplete policy on the website that Shannon was using as a reference. This is bad. John Richards straight up gave 2 lies about his convention straight to the Barrow's audience. Like, there he is, lying live about very sensitive issues. Good job, buddy.
Here's a question I'd love to know the answer to. He said,
What I do is screen out. And if somebody comes to me as a nominee who has a criminal record, then I discount them from the process.
if he can't find the contact details for Jim Hall, which I found in less than a minute, how can we trust his ability to do proper research on the nominees? Speaking of proper research, his mansplaining on how to use the internet, to me, was hilarious. That happened on multiple occasions. And yes, I did just say mansplaining just then because he clearly had no idea how the internet worked and he appeared to be extremely misogynistic towards me. I'm not saying that. I think he behaves like that to everyone, but many, many other people picked up these vibes from him. This part was fun.
He's not receiving an award.
As well as this part.
He's not receiving an award.
Oh, and all the time he accuses me of breaking the law.
I do not accept allegations as convictions. Do you? Because if you do, then you are not law-abiding.
That was just weird. Oh, and this bit. So here's a question from Critical Cripple. So when one of your attendees has threatened a member who is coming to your convention, do you think it's reasonable to ban them?
Yes.
Then why have you not stated publicly if Lance Gregorchuk has not been banned? Don't you just love where he admits that Lance shouldn't have been banned and then realizes it and tries to backpedal? Another hilarious part is where I'm asking about the policy's timeline and he starts explaining to me on how to build a website. Where did that come from? Like, how is that related? Although everyone's favourite meme seems to be the complain one, this part is my personal favourite.
What a suspicious mind you have. I have merely presented...
I am a skeptic, so...
Yeah, I've presented the... No, you're not a skeptic. You
I'm
are
a skeptic.
conspiracy theorist.
I'm sorry this is a long one. I just wanted to get my thoughts and feelings out there. I just have to say thank you so much to the community for supporting me after this. I got so many DMs, people reaching out to me just to check if I'm okay, and generally a massive support from people. I just have to say thank you. This community is amazing. Personally, I don't know what is going to happen with this in the future, but one thing I do know, it's going to be interesting. Please check the description below for all of the links and also watch until the end of the Patreon slide because I have something special for you. And don't forget, don't give yourself the raw prawn. I have to say a special thank you to all of my patrons, especially my $10 Platypus patrons, Aided Furball, Lauren Hart, Amanda Vogue, Mary Civitano, Ross Devereux, and Atheist Pastor. And I also have to say thank you to my $35 Irricanti patron, Osmond Cometh. Due to the virus that is happening, please make sure you look after yourself. Stay safe, and for the love of all things holy, unholy, and otherwise, please wash your hands.
Navadia is not easy to say either. But she's Australian, so she goes, Navadia.
Navadia. Do you want me to do it that way?
I can't do Australian.
I'm not going to do that.
It sounds really cool when she does it.
I don't want that on mine.
Stage.
Navadia. That's going to be in the outtakes, isn't it?
Yeah.
There won't be outtakes on this.
We should do it and send it to her just as a joke.
Can you do... No?
We're Atheist Age.
We're atheist age.
Good day.
We're Atheist Age.
And you're watching Navadia.
That is so bad.